We're diving deep today into a pretty compelling aspect of the UFO phenomenon, the persistent presence of these objects around nuclear sites. It's a pattern that's intrigued, well, researchers and witnesses for decades, and really seems to suggest a profound connection between these unexplained craft and our most powerful technology.
Yeah, and Robert Hastings, a leading researcher in this field, he's dedicated years to documenting these firsthand accounts from military personnel who have witnessed these events.
And his work, especially his book, UFOs and Nukes, really forms the bedrock of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to be examining specific cases, really starting with those that coincide with the dawn of the nuclear age.
One of the earliest documented incidents actually took place at the Hanford plutonium production site. This was back in 1945, just a few months before the Trinity test.
Right.
Numerous witnesses, including a guy named Bud Clem, they reported seeing luminous objects maneuvering over the site.
Wow. So, like, fighter jets were scrambled, right? Were they able to catch them?
No, they weren't able to intercept these objects.
It's almost as if these objects were drawn to the source of the plutonium production,
Yeah.
Core component of nuclear weapons. I mean, this pattern, it just keeps popping up. It's emphasized even further by the proximity of the Roswell crash in 1947.
Right, to the world's only nuclear bomber squadron at that time.
Exactly.
And adding another layer of intrigue here is the work of Lincoln LaPaz, a renowned meteor expert. In 1948, he started investigating a series of green fireballs. These fireballs were appearing near nuclear facilities and detonations. His findings were, they were unsettling, to say the least.
Interesting.
These fireballs, they exhibited flight patterns that defied natural explanations, leading him to believe that, that they were under intelligent control.
So green fireballs, anomalous trajectories, all appearing with nuclear activity. It's hard to write that off as just coincidence. It really points to like a deliberate interest in our nuclear capabilities.
Absolutely. And moving to 1952, we encountered the well-documented Washington, D.C. UFO flyover. This event, which captivated the media and even prompted inquiries from President Truman himself, occurred at a pretty pivotal time, historically. The Savannah River plutonium and tritium production facility in South Carolina, it was coming online.
Right. And wasn't that the most secretive atomic site in the U.S. at the time?
It was, yes. This was the most secretive atomic site in the U.S. at the time.
But there was a witness.
Yeah. A nuclear engineer by the name of John Anderson. He observed a green, glowing object executing advanced maneuvers near the facility.
Wow. So even with all that secrecy, they still couldn't keep these things away.
Nope. And Swedish astronomer Beatrice Wahl's research from that same period, adds a fascinating dimension. She was analyzing telescopic images.
Okay.
And she discovered instances of stars, vanishing and reappearing. And two of these events actually align with the peak dates of the D.C. flyover. July 19th and July 27th, 1952.
That's incredible. So could these vanishing stars, could they be linked to the objects seen over Washington and Savannah River?
That's a good question. It definitely begs further investigation. But all of these early events, they clearly demonstrate that this pattern of UFO activity near nuclear sites, it's not a new phenomenon. It's existed since the very beginning of the atomic age.
It really makes you wonder what their interest is.
It does. And as we go deeper into this timeline, these incidents, they become even more disconcerting. Reports start emerging not just of observation, but of direct interference with nuclear weapons systems.
Okay, so let's get into that. Tell me about, one of the most compelling cases, I think it involves Lieutenant Bob Jacobs at Vandenberg Air Force Base in 1964. He was tasked with filming a test launch of a dummy nuclear warhead.
Right. He was using a high-powered telescopic camera, and what he captured on film, it was extraordinary. A disc-shaped object, it approached the warhead in mid-flight and directed beams of light toward it, and the warhead then just tumbled out of the camera's frame.
That's wild. So what happened? Were there any other witnesses?
Oh, yeah. This event was witnessed by Jacobs' superiors, and the film was immediately confiscated.
By who?
Allegedly by individuals claiming to be from the CIA.
Wow, so they were trying to cover it up from the beginning.
It would seem that way, and the aftermath of this incident is equally disturbing. You see, Jacobs, he faced some pretty serious repercussions for speaking out, including the erasure of his records.
What?
Yeah. There were even threats to his safety. It culminated in his mailbox being blown up.
Wow. Talk about intimidation tactics. I mean, that really highlights the lengths to which the authorities were willing to go to just bury this information.
Absolutely. It underscores the gravity of the event and suggests that something truly extraordinary and, well, highly classified was captured on that film.
Okay, so Vandenberg, that was not an isolated incident. A few years later, at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, Robert Salas, a missile launch officer, had a chilling encounter. What happened there?
Well, he was on the phone with security personnel. They were reporting strange lights that were performing these unusual maneuvers over the base. And as he's on the phone, Salas witnesses something unprecedented. Several intercontinental ballistic missiles under his command, they abruptly went into a no-go condition. They were disabled, essentially.
At the same time.
Yeah, at the same time. And Bob Jameson, a missile targeting officer at Malmstrom, he received confirmation that all 10 missiles in a specific flight had gone off alert.
Okay, so how unusual is that? I mean, do missiles just malfunction like that?
It's highly unusual. Missiles very rarely malfunction, and the probability of 10 malfunctioning concurrently is statistically improbable. It points to some sort of external force interfering with those missiles. And this coincided with the presence of those unidentified lights.
Right.
Official explanations that attribute this to, routine Air Force drills or just simple malfunctions, well, they just don't hold up under scrutiny.
These events at Vandenberg and Malmstrom, I mean, they illustrate a really disturbing level of interaction between UFOs and nuclear weapon systems. And the question is, why? What is motivating them?
It's a question that needs to be answered. And these incidents, they weren't limited to just Malmstrom and Vandenberg. Similar events have been reported at other U.S. nuclear sites, further solidifying this pattern we're looking at.
Like where?
Well, for instance, in 1966 at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, Captain David Schindel, a launch officer, he was on duty when a red glowing object was reported hovering over the base.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, a launch indicator in his command post, it lit up. It signified that a missile launch sequence had been initiated.
You're kidding.
I'm not. A nuclear missile armed with a live warhead was nearly launched because of what appears to be UFO interference.
And he was able to stop it.
Yeah. Schindel was able to stop the countdown, but it's a chilling reminder of just how close we may have come to disaster. And these incidents continued into the 70s. In 1977, at Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, security personnel observed a saucer-shaped object hovering over a missile silo. And get this, it had beams of light directed toward it, just like at Vandenberg. And even more intriguing, a retired colonel who was involved with NATO weapons security, he disclosed that 2 tactical nuclear bombs were removed from a bunker at RAF Bentwaters in England shortly after the famous Rendlesham Forest incident in 1980.
Oh, yeah, Rendlesham. That's a big one. Why are they moved?
Well, it's thought that they were taken to Kirtland Air Force Base for analysis, possibly to assess any effects from those beams of light that were witnessed at Bentwaters. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, the Bentwaters case, it's fascinating, especially with all those witnesses. Sergeant Jim Peniston, he described encountering a triangular crash in the forest.
Right.
He even claimed to have experienced some sort of telepathic download of binary code.
Right after touching the craft's surface. That detail, it introduces this whole other layer of complexity to the UFO nuclear connection. It hints at a possible attempt at communication.
And then there's, the 1982 incident at a missile base in Soviet Ukraine.
Oh, you're talking about Colonel Vladimir Plantanov's account. He provided documentation that describes a massive disc-shaped object hovering over the base.
Right.
And simultaneously missiles in a launch capsule while they spontaneously entered countdown mode for 15 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Imagine the tension during those 15 seconds. Had those missiles launched, a global nuclear conflict, it could have been triggered. The fact that they deactivated just as abruptly as they activated without any human intervention, it just deepens the mystery.
Absolutely. And these incidents, they really underscore a crucial point. This pattern of UFO activity at nuclear sites is not limited to any one nation. It's global, which suggests that whatever intelligence is behind these objects, it has a vested interest in monitoring and perhaps even controlling nuclear weapons worldwide.
Right. They're sending a message. We just have to figure out what that message is.
So it's not just a Cold War phenomenon. There's been more recent activity.
Yeah, absolutely. This pattern continues. Numerous incidents in recent years really confirm that this UFO nuclear connection isn't just something from the past, but an ongoing phenomenon.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, well, in 2009, there was this wave of sightings. They were near the Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station in California, a known storage site for nuclear weapons.
Right.
And these sightings, they were well documented, and they raised considerable concern. I mean, especially among those who understood the potential implications.
For sure. What about that incident at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming? I think that was 2010.
Right, yeah. A power failure disrupted communication.
Yeah.
It was with 50 intercontinental ballistic missiles for over 26 hours. And while the Air Force, they attributed this to a faulty circuit card, but John Mills, he's a retired missile targeting technician, and he revealed that, well, many at the base believe the incident was linked to UFO activity.
Interesting. So, even with an official explanation, I mean, did it cause a stir?
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, the severity of this incident, it even warranted a briefing to President Obama. It really demonstrates the high level of concern surrounding these events within, the highest levels of government.
For sure. Now, with drone technology becoming so prevalent, has that changed things?
It's added another layer of complexity, that's for sure. In 2023, there were reports surfacing. Reports of unidentified drones appearing over multiple nuclear sites.
Yeah.
And these weren't just, your typical hobbyist drones. Their capabilities, they far exceeded anything commercially available.
So military grade then?
Yeah, possibly even more advanced. There were several mystery drone flights reported over the Nevada nuclear testing range and, similar objects. They were observed near UK bases, sensitive military sites in New Jersey. And these incidents, they raise concerns about the vulnerabilities of these facilities.
Makes sense. And I think there was even an incident at a nuclear power plant, wasn't there?
Right, the Salem nuclear power plant in New Jersey.
Yeah.
The anti-drone technology there, which is usually effective against, conventional drones, it failed to deter this unidentified craft. So it really suggests a level of technological sophistication beyond our current understanding.
So this persistent pattern of UFO activity at nuclear sites across, decades and continents, I mean, it really forces us to confront this fundamental question. Why? What is the nature of this interest?
Exactly. And to understand this complex issue, we need to explore a range of possible explanations without prematurely endorsing any particular theory. I mean, critical thinking and healthy skepticism are really essential when navigating this intricate landscape.
Right. So let's look at some of those explanations.
Okay, well, one theory is that these UFOs might be acting as a form of, a benevolent protector. Intervening to prevent a nuclear catastrophe. This idea stems from the observation that these objects often seem to disrupt nuclear weapons systems. And it could be, maybe it's a way of demonstrating their ability to control them, maybe as a warning.
So advanced intelligence is basically stepping in to safeguard humanity from self-destruction, huh?
Yeah, that's the idea. But is it true altruism? Or could there be maybe some alternative motive?
Right.
And that leads us to another theory, one that suggests a more self-serving motivation.
Okay, so what? They're protecting their own interests?
Exactly. Maybe UFOs aren't intervening out of concern for humanity, but to protect their own interests. Maybe they view Earth as a resource that a nuclear war would jeopardize.
That raises some big questions about humanity's place in the larger universe. You know, were we just tenants on a planet that ultimately belongs to someone else?
It's a thought-provoking concept.
It is.
Another compelling theory examines the potential impact of nuclear fallout on the UFOs themselves.
Okay.
You see, some speculate that the electromagnetic radiation or gamma rays that are released during nuclear explosions, they could disrupt the fabric of reality, causing these objects to manifest in our dimension.
So, nuclear detonations accidentally creating gateways for these objects to enter our world, that's pretty out there.
It is,
Yep.
But it blends scientific speculation with the potential for interdimensional realities.
Right. And what about simulation theory? That seems to be getting a lot of attention these days.
The simulation theory. It's a concept that has gained a lot of traction. This theory proposes that that our reality is actually a sophisticated simulation. And UFOs, they're advanced intelligences, maybe the creators or overseers of this simulation, and they're monitoring our progress. And nuclear weapons, representing a significant technological leap, could be a trigger point that attracts their attention.
Wow. So, like, developing nuclear weapons is a red flag for those running the simulation.
That's the idea.
Mind-blowing.
It is. It challenges everything we think we know about existence.
Totally.
Now, another theory suggests that UFOs might not be extraterrestrial at all, but rather advanced technology developed by humans, potentially within secret government programs.
Right.
And the connection to nuclear sites could stem from, the need for these programs to operate clandestinely, utilizing the security and infrastructure surrounding those nuclear facilities.
That could explain the secrecy and the advanced technology.
Yeah.
But what about the reports of non-human entities?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that this seems to be happening all over the world. Does that fit?
That's where this theory runs into some trouble.
Got it.
And finally, we have a theory that delves into the realm of time travel.
Time travel, huh?
Yeah. Some propose that, that UFOs are time-traveling humans from the future, and they're revisiting key points in our history, especially those involving nuclear technology.
Interesting. But if they're from the future and have that kind of technology, why wouldn't they, why wouldn't they have more subtle ways of influencing events?
Right. It's laden with paradoxes, but it does add another dimension to this whole UFO nuclear mystery.
For sure. It makes you think.
It does, and that's the point.
So we've got a lot of possible explanations, none of them definitive.
Right. The connection between UFOs and nuclear sites is a complex issue.
It is.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's been a deliberate effort to keep this information from the public.
Yeah, there's a pattern of obfuscation and denial that's been plaguing this subject for decades.
So there seems to be this deliberate effort, like you said, to keep this information under wraps, like to keep it from the public.
Yeah, there's a pattern of trying to make things unclear, and a denial that this is even happening, and this has been going on for decades.
Right.
And the historical connection, like we talked about, between some of the most vocal UFO skeptics and their involvement in nuclear programs. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's often overlooked. Think about Edward Condon. He was head of the Condon Committee in 1966. They were tasked with investigating UFOs, right?
All right.
But Condon himself was deeply involved in the Manhattan Project.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And of course, the Condon Committee, they concluded that there was no scientific evidence, none to support the existence of UFOs.
Right, which really shut down research for a long time.
Exactly. It had a chilling effect.
It did.
But it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
Condon was close with Robert Oppenheimer, the scientific director of the Manhattan Project. They studied together, back in Germany. Yeah. And Condon was instrumental in choosing Los Alamos as the site for the project.
Okay, so this wasn't just some impartial scientist. I mean, He was right in the thick of it, the whole world of nuclear science and secrecy.
Right.
So what does that tell us about the Condon report?
Well, later it came out that Condon was coordinating with an Air Force colonel, and this colonel was determined to have the whole UFO phenomenon just as dismissed as a waste of time and money. Yeah, so it really seems like a deliberate attempt to manipulate public perception to suppress any evidence that could challenge the official narrative.
It's a pattern of denial, and it's not just a Cold War thing, right? I mean, it continues today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You see it in the the government's handling of these recent UAP investigations. Take Robert Hastings, for example. He's tirelessly documented UFO activity around nuclear sites, and in an attempt to foster some transparency, he facilitated these interviews between officials from AARO, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, the current government program investigating UAPs.
Okay.
He got them together with several veterans who had actually witnessed UFOs at nuclear facilities.
Right. So a chance to get some firsthand information from reliable people.
Exactly. But what happened next is, it's really concerning.
What happened?
AARO officials, they chose not to record these interviews.
Really?
Yeah, they claim to be taking notes.
That seems pretty unusual, especially for an investigation like this.
It is. It's highly irregular. It raises questions about, their motives, whether they were really interested in documenting these testimonies for analysis.
Right. Like, were they really taking it seriously?
Yeah, exactly. And then, to make matters worse, during a congressional hearing, Sean Kirkpatrick, the AARO director, he stated that they had found no evidence at all to suggest that these objects were extraterrestrial. But, this directly contradicted what the veterans were saying. They described these objects and events that just defied conventional explanation.
So who are we supposed to believe? I mean, when the people in charge contradict the people who are there?
That's a good question. And it's a problem. This discrepancy between, official statements and witness testimony, it's a recurring theme in UFO research.
Yeah.
It points to a deeper issue of credibility and transparency.
Right.
Who are we supposed to trust when the people in positions of authority contradict the accounts of the people who are actually there?
It's frustrating, isn't it? I mean, for researchers and witnesses, like these credible people with military backgrounds, they come forward, they share their experiences, and then, their testimonies are ignored, dismissed, sometimes even ridiculed.
It's a frustrating situation. It points to, a fundamental question. What's the nature of our government? What's its relationship with its citizens?
Right.
I mean, if the government's withholding information about something like this, something as significant as UFO activity at nuclear sites, what does that say about their commitment to transparency and accountability?
That's a great question.
It is.
So what have we learned from this deep dive?
Well, we've uncovered this pattern of UFO activity at nuclear sites. It's intriguing. It's unsettling.
Right.
And it points to a potential intelligence, one that's taken an interest in our most destructive technology. But we're left with more questions than answers. We've talked about these different theories, benevolent protectors, time travelers, all interesting, all possible. But the truth, it remains elusive.
Yeah, it does.
But perhaps the most important takeaway from all this is is realizing that what we're dealing with here is, well, it's far beyond our current understanding.
Right. We don't know what we're dealing with.
We don't.
And even more concerning is this pattern of secrecy and disinformation that surrounds all this.
Yeah. If we're going to get to the bottom of this, we need transparency from those in power.
Right. We need real investigations, open and honest ones.
Yeah.
And we need to be open to all possibilities, no matter how strange or how challenging they might seem.
Exactly. This whole UFO nuclear connection, it's not just about, strange lights in the sky or these unexplained events. It's about the nature of reality itself.
Yeah.
It's about the potential for non-human intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the choices we make as a species.
It's about our future.
It is. It challenges our assumptions about, about our place in the universe. It forces us to confront the possibility that we're not alone.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I just wanted to encourage everyone listening to keep an open mind. Question the official stories. Keep looking for the truth.
Right. The answers are out there,
Okay.
but we won't find them by ignoring the evidence or by dismissing the testimonies of the people who've witnessed these extraordinary events.
Right. Don't just take their word for it.
Don't.
Look into it yourself.
Exactly.
The future of our understanding of this phenomenon of UFOs, heck, maybe even the future of humanity depends on it.
It does. We need to be courageous, curious, and have this unwavering commitment to the pursuit of the truth.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.